University of South Carolina community is mourning the loss of one of its civil rights icons, James L. Solomon Jr., one of 3 African-American students to desegregate South Carolina University back in 1963, died Friday at the age of 94. Sam Shapiro live on this story for us. Sam, what more can you tell us about his life and his legacy?
Good evening, Nick. Bobby Donaldson, director of the Center for Civil Rights and History and Research at USC, tells me Solomon's legacy will live on. A man with a servant's heart. His impact reaches far beyond USC's campus. And I even saw people coming out to the monument commemorating his role in desegregation at the McKissick Museum on the Horseshoe earlier today to leave flowers and commemorate his life and legacy.
I think when you look at his life, it is an inspiration to his children, his family, but to countless children around South Carolina.
An inspiring influence. This is how USC civil rights professor Bobby Donaldson described the impact that James L. Solomon Jr.'s advocacy will have on people here in the Palmetto State for generations to come. He died Friday at the age of 94. Solomon was one of 3 African-American students who played a role in desegregating the university back in September of 1963. He enrolled in the university's graduate program, becoming the first black graduate student of the mathematics department.
James Solomon, Henri Monteith, and Robert Anderson opened the doors of our university in historic ways. And I think one of the lasting tributes or testimonies to Jim Solomon is that he opened doors, he built bridges, he laid a foundation for generations of people on this campus and made the University of South Carolina a dramatically different institution.
Donaldson said Solomon was a humble man whose legacy fighting against racial discrimination stretches across the country. Solomon was also the first black man to hold office in Sumter County since Reconstruction when he was elected to the school board there. He later served on Richland County Council, Richland School District 1's board, was the South Carolina State Agency Director, and also the Commissioner of the Department of Social Services.
James Solomon left an indelible imprint in the history of South Carolina. Beyond integrating our university, he helped to improve public education. He helped to improve the Department of Social Services. He was at all times a servant leader.
Solomon's family announced his passing and expressed thanks for their thoughts and prayers during this time. And funeral arrangements are being handled by Levy's Funeral Home in Columbia. And we'll have more on that once we have additional details over on our website at WIS.com. Live in the studio, Sam Shapiro, WIS News 10.
Sam, thanks. The University of South Carolina said in a statement reflecting on Solomon's life, quote, his legacy of bravery and service to community is an enduring inspiration to all of us. His role in desegregating the Columbia campus, along with Henry Monteith Treadwell and Robert G. Anderson, is immortalized on our campus as a testament to his personal courage and an unwavering commitment to justice, end quote.